We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Chesam and Aleph Meseches Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 38a. The Gemara is continuing Rabbi Abba's argument that he can really even follow the opinion of Admon, because Admon only says what he says, talking about the case where a person is surrounded on all sides, his property is surrounded on all sides by a property that belongs to one person. It used to belong to four separate individuals, and he doesn't know exactly where he had rights to have a path. So he can say, Darki Chad Gabachu, he says, for sure, I have a path in one of your properties. You're the single owner, and I certainly have that claim. As Rashi over here says, Darki Chad Isli Gabach, V'tainis Bariu, meaning he's making a certain claim. In Adamon's case, the Yada, my Katavamine, the guy knows exactly what he's claiming from this individual. Aval Hacha, but over here, when you're talking about a situation, again, with an individual who's a suffix, he doesn't know if he's a child of the brother who died or a child of the brother who's alive. So mi'ikol ameimar hachi, do you have such a claim, such a bari kind of claim? As Rashi over here says, mi'ikol ameimar hachi halo yada mai katavamine, meaning the guy making the claim doesn't even know exactly what he's claiming. Ipalga b'nichsei misna, iminsa b'nichsei yavam, is he claiming half of the property of the person who died, or is he claiming a portion among the property of the brother-in-law? In other words, he's trying to put together and say, well, I have a claim either way, but I don't know which claim is correct. And so each individual that he's claiming against can say, well, make a certain claim. You don't have a proof to your actual claim. So therefore, again, that's why Rabbi Abba says it could very well be that Admon would agree that in my case, the claim is not as certain. For Rabbi Yirmi Amar Lach, and the same thing the other way around. Rabbi Yirmi will say to you, Anod Amri Afilu Rabbanan, I can follow even according to the Rabbanan. Arkan Lo Ka'amri Rabbanan Hasam, the Rabbanan only said what they said in that case. Elamisham Da Amar Le, Shasakt, Vilom Hadrana Shtar Lemarayu, Vilom Motzes Lishtau Yedina Bahadayu. In that case, when the person who owns all four fields that are surrounding the other property, he has the ability to actually make things go back to the way they originally were. He can say, if you're quiet, you're quiet, you don't have a claim against me, good. But if you're going to try to make a claim against me, then I'll just return the original shtaros to their original owners, and therefore they're now going to own the property, all four of them, and you're not going to have a claim because each one will say, you really had rights to the other guy's property. So in other words, here there's a real actual possibility of going back in time, so to speak, and giving back the shtaros. But over here it's all just theoretical. You can't actually go back and redivide a property that's already been divided up, or reclaim or make such claims once again, and therefore the person does not have as strong of a claim. And the Gemara continues with some similar kinds of cases. Suffolk v'yovam shebo lachlok b'nichsei saba. Let's say you have the case of a Suffolk, again, an individual. He doesn't know if he's the son of the brother who died or if he's the son of the Yavam. So now the Suffolk and the Yavam are coming along and they want to divide up the property of the grandfather. Rashi over here says, Saba avi hameis v'yavam. In other words, the father of the brother who died and the Yavam, now they want to argue over inheriting that property. So Suffolk, the Suffolk says, Hi Gavra bar Misnu. He's saying that I'm really the son of the brother who died, upalga didiu, and therefore I get half of it. Basically, the brother who died gets half the property from the grandfather, and now I get that because my father's no longer alive. But Yavam Amar, the Yavam says, At broi didiyat. No, you're actually my son. V'les loch v'lo midi. So you don't get anything, I get everything. So have a Yavam vadai. So in this case, the Yavam has the status of a vadai. He's making a certain claim. The Suffolk, and the Suffolk has the status of a Suffolk claim. Ve'in Suffolk motzi midei vadai. So a Suffolk cannot take from a vadai, and therefore in this case, the Yavam is going to win. And the Gemara continues with another similar case, Suffolk uvnei Yavam. Let's say you have a Suffolk, and now it's the children of the Yavam. Shebo lachlok b'nichsei saba. Similar case, they want to divide up the property of the grandfather. Suffolk Amar hu gavra bar misnu. The Suffolk says that I'm really the son of the brother who died. Upal gadidiu. So I get half the property because half would have went to my father, and I'm the son of him, so I get half. Uvnei Yavam Amri. Now the bnei Yavam, the children of the Yavam, they say achuna at, you're actually our brother. Uminsa islach bahadon, and you just get a portion, same as us. You have to divide up together with us. So the Gemara says, Palga to come modi luhu. Now, the half that he's admitting to them, he admits certainly that they at least divide up among half. So shakli, they're for sure going to take that portion. Tilsa de kamodile. Now, the third that they admit to him, because they admit that he has at least some portion over here, because even if he's their brother, he's going to get something. So shakal, so he takes that. Pashlu danka, you're only left with a sixth that they're really arguing over. Have a maman hamutal besafik. That part is considered maman hamutal besafik. V'chokin, and they divide that property up. And the Gemara continues, Saba v'Yavam b'nechsei Safek. Let's say it's just the other direction. Let's say it's the grandfather and the Yavam, and they're arguing over the property of the Safek. In this case, the Safek doesn't have children, and so the property is actually going to go up. So the question over here is the Saba says that he should get it because he's the Safek is actually the son of the brother who died, so the property should go straight up to the grandfather. And the Yavam says, no, the Safek is my son, so the property should go up to me. It shouldn't go up to the grandfather. Or you can do the other way. Saba v'Safek b'nechsei Yavam. Let's say it's the grandfather and the Safek, and they're arguing over the property of the Yavam. The Yavam dies, and the question is the Safek the child of the Yavam, and he gets to inherit? Or no, the Safek's irrelevant over here. The Yavam has no other kids, and it goes up to the grandfather. So in those cases as well, havimam and hamutal b'Safek, these are all cases where the money is sitting in a Safek situation, v'cholken, and therefore you divide the property. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Shomeres Yavam. Let's say you have a woman and she's waiting to do Yibum, Shenaflu lo nechasim, and now she has property that has fallen to her. As Rashi over here says, Shomeres Yavam amtenes umetzapel Yavam. In other words, her husband dies and she's waiting to perform the Yibum with the Yavam. Kimo aniya azu lashav shomra be'afal pi b'chsubas. Rashi just explaining what the language of Shomeres is. Shenaflu lo nechasim me'avia. Now what happens is that her father dies and she gets property from her father. V'sal gadaita. Now right now we think Shenaflu lo kishi shomeres yavam, that she's inheriting this property at the time that she's a shomeres yavam. So in any case, she's a shomeres yavam and she has this property that now falls to her. So modim Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. So Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, they both admit shemocheres v'nosenes v'kayim. She could sell, she could give that property, and that works. It's effective. And the Mishnah continues, Mesa, let's say she dies. Ma yasa b'chsubasa u'v'nechasim ha'nechnasim v'yotzen ima. So what happens to her ksuba when she dies, and what happens to the property that she brings into the marriage and she brings out of the marriage? So Beis Shammai say yachloku yorshei habal im yorshei ha'av. So they say that it has to be divided up. The inheritors, those who inherit her father's side of the family, and those who inherit her husband. So they have equal rights to the property. We'll see Rashi in a moment. Beis Hillel say nechasim b'chezkasan, that everything should stay with their original chazaka. You don't do yachloku, you don't split the property, but you go with the chazaka, the presumption of where they are. So therefore ksuba b'chezkas yorshei habal. Therefore the ksuba, there's a chazaka that it goes to those who are inheriting the husband. And nechasim ha'nechnasim v'yotzim ima, the property that went into the marriage and comes out of the marriage with her, bechezkas yorshei av, that is a chazaka that it goes with the those who are yorshim, those who are inheriting of the father. Konsa, now what happens if it's not a shomeres yavam case, but he actually marries her? The yavam marries the woman, so then harehi ke'ishto l'chol davar. Then she's like a full-fledged wife in terms of all inheritance. Uvilvad should take ksuba al nichse ba'al harishon, except that the ksuba is on the property of her original husband. We'll see Rashi as well. And Rashi over here says, uvenechasim ha'nechnasim v'yotzim ima, by the property that she brings into the marriage and takes out of the marriage. That's again the machlokas Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, what you do with that property if she dies. Hainu nichse milug, that refers to what we call nichse milug. Sha'keren shelo kayim, u'chashi nechneses nechnasin ima, u'chashi yotzes yotzin ima. The idea is, let's say she's bringing a piece of land into the marriage, so she owns the land, she owns the principal, and while she's married to the husband gets the fruit, he gets the peiros of that land, and let's say she leaves the marriage, so then she takes that land with her. So now in this case she died and she's a shomeres yavam. What do you do with that property? Beis Shammai omrim yachloku yorshei habal im yorshei ha'av. Beis Shammai say that those who are inheriting on the husband's side, meaning she's shomeres yavam, she's supposed to marry the yavam, they split that property with let's say her father's household, those who would inherit her if she was an unmarried woman. And the idea is the safek nesuahi. The idea over here is it's a safek if she's really married to this yavam or not. She's a shomeres yavam. She's awaiting the yibum. V'zacha yavam b'chatzi yerusha, so misafek sha'abal yorish as ishto. So that's why the yavam gets half of this inheritance, because it's a doubt, because normally a husband inherits his wife. V'zusha safek nesuahi etzlo. Now this woman is a safek if she's really married to him. So zachi b'palga, he gets half. Now Rashi over here explains avol b'chsubasa, but when it comes to the ksuba, modim Beis Shammai de v'cheskas habalhi. There actually Beis Shammai would admit that there is a chazaka there, that it goes to the husband. V'lo palgi ba yorshei ha'av, the inheritors on the father's side, meaning her father's side, are not going to get it. B'tayim the kula masisim mefarsh b'gemara. The reason of the entire Mishnah is explained in the Gemara. What Rashi is saying over here is that when Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argue, and Beis Shammai say yachloku, and Beis Hillel say that nechasim stay in their chazaka, they're only arguing about the nechasim hanichnasim v'yotzen ima. That's the machlokas. Beis Shammai say that gets split, and Beis Hillel says that everything stays in its original chazaka, and that's why Beis Hillel say that when it comes to nechasim hanichnasim v'yotzen ima, bechezkas yorshei av, that stays in the chazaka with her side of the family as if she was not married. But Rashi is saying that when it comes to the ksuba, even though you could read the Mishnah, that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are arguing regarding the ksuba as well, but Rashi says that is not the case. Rashi says by the ksuba, Beis Shammai would actually admit to what Beis Hillel is saying, and in a situation of the ksuba, it would be bechezkas yorshei habal, like Beis Hillel said. And we'll just note over here that when Rashi is discussing the ksuba, we're talking about the ksuba that she had with her first husband, the one who died, and that's why the Mishnah at the end over here, when it's talking about the fact that the Yavam marries her, then she's like his wife for everything, except that her ksuba is payable on the property of her first husband. Again, that's because we're talking about the ksuba of the first husband, and that point is going to be discussed in the Gemara as well. And so the Gemara says, Ma'ishna reisha de lo pligi. What's the difference that at the beginning of the Mishnah, Beis Shammai do not argue on Beis Hillel? U'ma'ishna seifa de pligi. And what's the difference that at the end of the Mishnah, Beis Shammai do argue on Beis Hillel? As Rashi over here explains, Ma'ishna reisha kashik hayemes. What's the difference that in the first part of the Mishnah, when she's alive, de lo pligi Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai don't argue. Ela b'koach di lo mechazkina linachasi. We say all the property is in her it's in her possession, not in the possession of the Yavam. Dekamri mocheres v'nosenes lechatchila. She could sell the property lechatchila, she could give it away lechatchila. U'ma'ishna seifin, what's the difference that at the end of the Mishnah, the pligi, there suddenly Beis Shammai say that they argue and they say it's not in her possession, you have to split the property. Kishemesa, when she dies, lo mukmi nichse milug becheskas yorsheh. There Beis Shammai don't say that the nichse milug go to her inheritors, but they say it gets split between those who are supposed to inherit her and this husband, this Yavam, who she's waiting to perform Yibam with. So what's the difference between the Reisha and the Seifa? So Amar Ula says, Reisha de Nafla Kashi Arusa. In the Reisha, we're talking about a situation where she's a Shomeres Yavam from Erusin. She was only betrothed to the first husband, and then he dies, and now is Shomeres Yavam. The Seifa de Nafla Kashi Nasu. And the Seifa, we're talking about a totally different case, where she was already married to her husband that died. She was a Nasua, then he died, and then she fell to Yibam. As Rashi over here says, Amar Ula, Reisha de Nafla Kashi Arusa, Shenafla Liba Me'erisin, V'nafla HaNechasim La Kashi Shomeres Yavam. While she was awaiting Yibum from Erisin to this Yavam, that's when she gets this property. And Seifa de Nafla Lefanav Liyibam Kashi Nasua, and the Seifa she fell to Yibum when she was in Nasua. Hilkach therefore, Reisha de Lagabe Arusa Mamish Kaimelon LeBeis Shammai Timchor. So when it comes to the Reisha, so Beis Shammai hold by an Arusa, she can sell Kedetanan Lekamon, like we'll learn in the Mishnah later on. So Kol Shekein Zu She'ein El Zakuka Bialma. So in this case, where she's just Zakuka, she's not even actually marrying this person, it's for sure going to be true. Uleveis Hillel de Amri Barusa Vadei Lo Simkor Lechatchila. Now Beis Hillel say by an Arusa Vadei. Let's say you have a woman who's for sure an Arusa, she cannot sell Lechatchila. Avol Imachra V'Nas Nakaim. But if she does sell, then B'diavad it'll work. So Hacham Misham the Safek Arusa. Here she's in an even lower level. She's a Safek Arusa. The Agida Beivalavish Do Mamishi. She's just kind of connected to the Yavam, but not really his wife. Modu Beis Hillel. So there Beis Hillel admit to Mocheres V'Nosenes Lechatchila, that she can sell and she could give it away even Lechatchila. And so in other words, what Rashi is saying is when it comes to an Arusa, so we know by a real Arusa, Beis Shammai certainly says she can sell. And even Beis Hillel say she can't sell by a real Arusa, so that's only true by a real Arusa, but by a Safek Arusa, she can certainly sell even Lechatchila, and that's why Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, they both agree by an Arusa. And the Gemara continues, V'kasavar Ula, and Ula holds, Zekas Arusa Osa Safek Arusa, like Rashi just said. When you have a Zek of an Arusa, so that's the same as a Safek of an Arusa. And again, in a situation of a Safek and Arusa, of a Safek of an Arusa, so Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel will both agree, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Ches Amud Beis.